Hi, welcome back. And in this mini lecture, we're going to talk a little bit about choosing a working title for your paper. It is true that a properly constructed title will raise the odds that your paper will, first of all, be accepted, and second, be read. So we're talking about this early in the course so that you can have some conversation about the title, realizing that your title may change as you move through the process of writing an article. So there are really two types of titles that we ought to discuss. The first one is an indicative title that tells what the paper is about. For instance, the title might be a new multi-drug regimen for treatment of metastatic breast cancer. This tells the reader what the paper is reporting, but not particularly the message. The second type of title is informative title. This is more helpful for starting in writing. It tells briefly in sentence form the message of the paper. For instance, a new multi-drug regimen for treatment of metastatic breast cancer produces greater survival at 1 year than cytolysaine. It might be a little too long, but I think you get the point about an informative title. The sequence of title terms is also important. The position of terms within a title may influence whether a reader scanning the journal's content page will read the paper. So as you look at your title, make sure that there's a sequencing of terms that will draw the reader in. Let's talk a little bit about the title structure. Usually, titles are structured in one of three ways. The first way is a single continuous title. For instance, metastatic breast cancer treated with a new multi-drug regimen or with cytolysaine in a cooperative group randomized control trial. So you sort of get a single title. You can decide whether it's too long or whether that would draw you in. The second is a title with a subordinate term following a colon. For instance, metastatic breast cancer treated with a new multi-drug regimen or with cytolysaine, a cooperative group trial. So it sort of stops your thinking for a second and moves on to a second order of thinking. The third kind is a title and a subtitle. For instance, metastatic breast cancer treated with a new multi-drug regimen or with cytolysaine. And then underneath in a subtitle, a cooperative group randomized controlled trial. So I think you get the point. You have to sort of see where that works for your article and your title. A brief remark about abbreviation in titles. In general, they should not be used. There are some exceptions. If you have words that are widely and frequently used, abbreviations such as DNA, AIDS, NIH, or some scientific symbols such as pH or degree centigrade, or those titles that or words that replace a long multi-term name such as MOP, seem to work well in titles. Otherwise, I'd stay away from them. A quick note about revision of titles. First of all, do not feel compelled to stick with your original title all the way through to the final version. Changes may occur in content, changes may occur due to journal requirements, so pick one at the very beginning, but don't be afraid as you move through to nudge that title into something that works better for you. Okay, back to preparing a good title. A good paper needs a good title, and it's the first thing to help the reader begin using it wisely. Work on your title early in the process and then revisit it often. It's really important to understand the nature of your work, and your title helps you do this. It's easy for a reader to identify those papers where the title has been focused upon by the person writing the article. Preparing a good title means having the most important words appear toward the beginning of your title, limiting the use of ambiguous or confusing words, breaking your title up into a title and a subtitle, as we talked about earlier, when you have too many words, and including keywords that will help researchers in the future find when they're looking for your type of work. Okay, the remainder of the mini lecture will be on tips on creating terrific titles for your paper. Number one, learn to spot tired titles. A boring title usually contains no active verbs and many lengthy buzzwords. Worst of all, it sounds like the 100 other titles you've heard before. It's just too generic, so be careful about that. Number two, spend some time coming up with a title. With so much at stake, don't just grab the first title anyone suggests. Play around with some variations of your first idea until you have the punchiest possible name or title. Number 3, use a number in your title. 6 things you must know about testing for H. pylori. But remember, some say that David Letterman ruined the top 10 list forever. Everyone knows he has only 6 or 7 good ones and the rest are just fillers. So if you're dispensing tips, don't be afraid to stop at less than 10 or push beyond that number. Okay, number 4, stress the benefits for readers. Always tell your readers what your information can do for them. What will they gain from investing their precious time to read it? Number 5, address prospects by specific job titles. That would look like 6 things every clinician must know about H. pylori. Number 6, call your document what it really is. Not everything has to be a white paper. Perhaps you should call your document a clinical review, a case in point, a research report, or something else entirely. Number 7, avoid mentioning a product, particularly trade names. Putting a trade name in a paper title makes it sound like a sales pitch, period. Always use the generic title. Remember, a sales pitch is the last thing that most readers want. Number 8, knock a tired suggestion down to a subtitle. So what if your co-author and your physician or your professor hands you a boring title that they want you to use? One tactic is to come up with a better title, then move the original title to the subtitle. Number 9, run possible titles past sample readers, your colleagues. After all, they can judge better than you. They'll know what works for them and their colleagues. So don't guess, field test. Number 10, back up your lively title with lively content. A title is like a promise. Don't tack a great title on a ho-hum document. Use your lively title to motivate you to create an exceptionally interesting paper. You'll be way ahead of the curve when you do that. And lastly, and this will be my number 11 so that I can show you that I followed my own advice, find some keywords and phrases from your paper and any other main topics in the paper. Then come up with a brief phrase that gives potential readers a taste of your topic. For instance, evaluating fever in children, an update. Or Hodgkin's disease, a case in point. Or treatment options for H. pylori. I think you get the point. So for the next week, read at least 10 titles of papers and journals and get a sense of what works for you, or doesn't. Okay, that concludes this mini lecture on choosing a working title. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you down the road.